What do you think, Steve? Self-remembering and stopping thoughts, does it do anything? Does it accomplish anything?
I try to self-remember as often as possible. And I would continue that on a daily basis in everything I do. So yes, self-remembering is very important. And I also agree that stopping your thoughts from time to time can, just to give yourself a break from your own static electricity that seems, thoughts are kind of like radio noise in some respects. It just goes and goes unless you make an intentional effort to stop your thoughts. They will just continue on, seemingly endlessly, at least in this body. And self-remembering is what allows you to be able to recognize what's going on in your mechanical self. A lot of times it's just, it's a curiosity how automatic everything seems to be. And I'm more than happy to talk about fourth way. That seems to be where you are most comfortable, and I'm happy to do that as well. So we need not talk about Kabbalah at all. I'm just in the beginning stages of understanding the perspective that they're presenting, and so I'm not qualified to speak about Kabbalah in essence. So all I can tell you right now is my experiences on a personal level in the introductory stages of learning some of the fundamentals. That's all I'm asking you guys, is a little bit of patience on this, because the only thing I did promise you was that I would try to keep you apprised of what's going on, and anything that comes to me in the form of interesting insights into existence, I would be happy to share. But other than that, I'm not eager to talk about Kabbalah in the sense that I'm really not an expert. I'm just now becoming familiar with. It's a completely different language. It's something that in order to pay attention to their perspective, you have to learn a different language. So I'm in the process of learning some of that language.
Well, not to interrupt you, but the person who introduced us to Kabbalah, we all know who that is. We're not going to mention his name here because this may end up on YouTube, but he literally wrote the fourth way is dead, and that something new needs to be tried. He personally has given up on the fourth way. I have not. I find it very functional, and it has given me experiences that I couldn't have got any other way. And to answer Gort's question in his email, just a second, Steve, just a second. In Gort's email, you have to use all three centers in self-remembering or in stopping thoughts. He asked, do you use the intellect? Did I use the intellect, or did I use the emotional center? And what I'm going to reply to him is that it takes all three, and that's the nature of the fourth way, is using all the centers simultaneously, and on top of that, a super effort is necessary in order to reach the state that he's talking about that I reached. What's interesting is that those states don't last. Martin understands that. This is Martin right here. I'm pointing at the camera. But Martin understands that. He's experienced these things, and he knows they don't last forever. Go ahead, Steve. You wanted to speak.
Yeah, the one thing that you should keep in mind, and I think that I will pat myself on the back a little bit here, is the fact that with all the interactions and all the reaching out that you've done, you, Steve Gage, were never able to flesh out the Kabbalah connection with this character. until I reached out to him and somehow managed to flesh it out. So you can thank me that now at least we understand the perspective that this man is coming from. We don't understand a whole lot else about him, but we know that much. And I think that that alone gives you a key to understanding what the man is writing about. My God, how long did you talk to you talked to him on the phone? You wrote him, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I've known him for years.
You never fleshed out, Steve, that he was into Kabbalah.
I don't think he was until just recently.
He's already said he's gone through all the classes. He's in personal contact with Michael Laitman at a certain level of the classes. You get to talk to the guy who is the man in charge of this B'nai Baruch Foundation, okay? He teaches classes to the advanced students. So he's gone through the process of the B'nai Baruch schooling. And oddly enough, here's the other thing. All this time we've been looking and wondering if there was any such thing as an online school, and guess what? There is.
Okay, Steve. Okay.
It's an actual school. It's not an imaginary school.
Okay. I'm just saying, you know, I'm not ready to throw the fourth way in the trash like that person has that we're discussing.
This is what referees do when there's a touchdown score.
Martin, what do you think? Speak up, my man. What do you think about the fourth way? Do we throw it in the trash?
Nobody wants to throw the fourth way in the trash, at least not of the people in this room. Nobody's asking that. And I'm not even asking you to even like Mike. I don't particularly like him either.
I'm waiting for Martin to speak up, so...
He can speak up. He'll speak up. Believe me, Martin's just loading. He's loading up.
Well, this person we are speaking of who introduced us to Kabbalah has thrown the fourth way in the trash. And I'm not ready to switch over to Kabbalah and give up on the fourth way because I've already had some success. Now, Martin, what do you think? Go ahead, Martin.
Personally, yeah, I've got bored from fourth way ideas and from any other ideas that I ever came across. So, and it still, it serves me. But remember, I only deal with the psychological ideas. I don't deal with any of the cosmology or anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all that kind of thing. That's all a bit,
Martin, you're breaking up and your video's gone.
I think so.
Go ahead, Martin. I can see.
Oh, there. Is that you?
Turn your video off and on. I think Martin's video's locked up on him.
No, I can still see myself here. I can see everybody else as well.
Okay, I got you on camera. You're back, and I heard every word you said. So just keep talking. Yeah, I agree with the psychological part is the most amazing part. The rest of it's kind of wild stuff. But I think we got to mute mics.
Well, let me ask Camille a question. Camille, we've been talking about the fourth way for a while, and you've been exposed to this particular conversation we've been having about the fourth way. Have you read any of the textbooks or anything, or are you familiar at all with the fourth way? As far as its connection to Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, or what is your perspective on the fourth way?
Well, the deepest that I read about fourth way was on Wikipedia, and listening to you, to your descriptions. What I do is that by listening to you, I sort of get the notion of separate bricks in a brick wall.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of bricks in this room right now, for sure.
But even on today's session, when you asked about the stopping thought and what was another question? Yeah, self-remembering. It also gives me at least two bricks to think about. Well, for example, I don't know what the self-remembering is, so I was going to ask this question from you. But as to stopping a thought, to me, it's another term for meditation. And I stop my thoughts every morning when I do my morning meditation. But I'd like to mention that you cannot stop being. So if you stop thought, you have to become something else. You cannot unbecome yourself. So what I become is a feeling, not a thought. That's it.
That's a precious observation, Glenn.
One question, Camille.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry? Oh,
Question, yeah?
you're welcome.
Yeah. How do you know that you've become a feeling?
Because you feel it.
How do you know that you've become a feeling?
It's a paradoxical situation. When you know that you became a feeling, you stop being a feeling because you think that you become a feeling. But you can remember that you were a feeling after, say, 10 seconds of being a feeling.
No, I don't. How do you know? You know, you've got your thoughts, yeah? You know your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
How you're in feeling? How do you, but the question is, how do you know? During
How- You mean, how do I know that I am a feeling?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a certain state, and it's difficult to describe it in words in a deeply detailed way. But it's a feeling, and it's hard to say anything else about it.
Mute your
You
mic,
feel like
Steve.
Sorry?
I was just telling Steve to mute his mic because we're getting echo.
Let's try it again. Oh, now it's easier.
It's working now.
Mm-hmm. So when you remember that you were a feeling, you remember what you were when you were a feeling. And I can remember that I can have different feelings. I can feel a stream of energy. I can feel calm. I can feel being observant. But again, the paradox is when you begin to consider yourself in asking a question, am I feeling it? The very question that you ask is effectively destroying the feeling. It's a switching, even for a short period of time, it's a switching focus from a feeling to a thought process. So you have to be a feeling of some feeling. I would not say that there is any particular feeling that you have to cling to. But there is a distinct difference between feeling something and thinking about something. It's as close as I can get to that.
Well, it's interesting that in my experience, when you try to stop thoughts, it's very difficult and you have to involve all three centers, just like the fourth way describes, in either self-remembering or stopping thoughts. You have to involve thinking, emotion, and your motor skills, your movements. You have to involve it with enough intensity. Meditation is more of a relaxation thing. What I'm speaking of, the fourth way teaches to use intense effort through all three centers to either stop thought or use it for self-remembering, at which point, if you accomplish what you're trying to do, you will reach a different state of consciousness in which your mind is very calm and quiet, and there's no automatic crap going on, and everything is seen just as it is without labels. But it takes great intensity, what they call super effort in the fourth way. And you asked the question, what is self-remembering? The simplest explanation for self-remembering is to hold the sensation, I am here. They teach self-remembering in combination with self-observation. And we observe ourselves, that we react either with intellect or with emotion or with movement, to observe that there is these three different aspects to ourselves. And then self-remembering is to actually hold the sensation, I am here, of that entirety, all of you, all of yourself. And so that's what that is. But in my experiences, through self-remembering or stopping thought, I achieved a peak experience, which I think Martin has probably done too, through the help of maybe a little bit of medicinal purposes only stuff, but we won't get into that. But it's a peak experience, but it doesn't last, but it does give you a glimpse of the true nature of ourselves and reality. And so anyway, I hope I've explained self-remembering. Martin, why don't you talk about some of your experiences?
Not today, no. According to Gurdjieff in ISOM, when he begins talking about the idea of self-remembering, he calls it self-remembering or self-consciousness. I think you have to take this into account when trying to understand what self-remembering actually is. But still, I want to go back to what I was saying earlier to Camille. He says, you remembered you was a feeling. So that raises the question, what was remembering?
Yes, it's an interesting question. I think I remember that I was a feeling. Again, it's like tiptoeing around it, but not being able to get into it, because when you in the feeling, you can't think, and that's because makes it difficult to express it in words.
Yeah, I understand that you can't explain, you can't describe the feeling, maybe put that into words, what the feeling is. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say is, you know, you have to know, something knows that you're having this feeling, yeah?
Oh yes, yes, absolutely.
So you're not the feeling. You're having the feeling, but you're not the feeling. Because something knows you're having. So what is there's something that knows.
Oh, I see what you mean. You mean that if let's take an analogy of a string. If a string vibrates, it vibrates and it doesn't know that it vibrates. But if the string has a self-consciousness that can separate itself from the physical string, and it can see from a distance that it vibrates, then there is this understanding that I am vibrating. So I am become two I. I as a higher self, and I as I am this human self. And this human self, it feels, but this higher self, it sees that the human self feels something. So if I'm completely immersed in the feeling, and submerged in the feeling, it's like flowing in the water and not knowing that you're flowing in the water, not knowing that you're in an ocean, and you have to look from a distance in order to assess this situation. That's my best answer to your question of knowing that I am a feeling. I have a feeling.
Let me ask you something, Camille. When you've meditated and stopped thoughts and become more of a feeling, does your perception of reality change at all? Is there a difference? Do you notice?
Yes, it does change. And the best perception that I have is when I am again in a dual situation, in a paradoxical situation where, let's say, a universe, a thing that is all that is. All that is on one hand inside me as an infinitely small point, and on the other hand I am in that infinitely small point inside this small infinitely small point that becomes infinitely large universe at the same time. So I am a container for this universe and I contain it as an infinitely small point inside me, and I am at the same time a participant inside that infinitely large universe. So I'm both in it and out of it. That's the best feeling that I had during such meditation.
That's an experience. That's an experience. As I said, I wanted to address some posts at our group today. Gort asked about how I got to my experiences, so I'm going to tell him about that. But what you're describing is exactly what I learned in those experiences, which is that the universe is a singularity. That's what I call it, a singularity. Just exactly what you described, Camille. An infinitely undescribable point, immeasurable, maybe small, maybe big, no one could say because there's nothing outside it, and yet it encompasses us and we encompass it at the same time. It's a paradox, just like you said. So it's no wonder you've joined our little clan of inquirers because you've obviously experienced some of these higher experiences. So if you want to add anything to that, go for it, and then I'm going to stop recording.
I'd like to make a short remark. You mentioned an emotional center, and you said that emotional centers to be effectively switched off during this state of not thinking. And one of the ramifications of that is that you have to stop considering things in terms of good or bad, because as soon as you attach a label of bad or good to a thing, you immediately turn on an emotional center. That's it.
I hadn't thought of it like that. Well, I don't know how your
Excuse me
technique...
just a second.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think what Camille has said, I understand you completely, Camille. You really didn't have to go into the long explanation for me. I think that I call it reception now. Reception, it's like a cup. You know, in the Bible where it talks about your cup, your cup runneth over. You've heard that phrase before, right, Camille? From one of the most famous Psalms in the Old Testament about the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and so on. And at one point in that particular psalm, there is the phrase, my cup runneth over. In order for the cup to runneth over in meditation, you must empty the cup so that you can receive from the higher. You have to empty the ego out of the cup. If that makes any sense to anyone, discuss. I'll mute my mic.